And joining Annette Young and I is Ynaée Benaben, co-founder of the advocacy group Avant, toute, which offers support services for vulnerable women. Thank you for being with us here on France 24. Before I ask you about your association and what's been going on with the government today, something in that report I wanted to touch upon, which is she meets the man in 2007, and it's over a period of time that his behavior becomes more and more controlling. Your reaction to that?
It is always the case because it's how they manage to keep them with them in the relationship. They always say that they love their partner and that the beginning was so perfect and they were so loving and affectionate. And it can be very early, but it's always little by little that they get more and more violent, and it's more difficult for them to leave.
And this is where perhaps your association comes in, because you heard the sister explain how she didn't tell her close family she was scared, but she did tell a friend.
Yes, it's sometimes and often easier to speak to someone that is not the closest. And that's why we opened a chat, for example. We work with young women suffering violence, and we realized that talking to the family when they don't even know sometimes that you're actually dating someone can be very difficult.
It's all about shame, isn't it?
Yes, it's about shame. It's also because we still think that violence is an intimacy problem. So women feel responsible for it because it's their couple, it's the person they choose to be with. So they don't feel very free to address the problem to someone else and to open about it in society. So what we wanted to offer was a place where they could feel safe. It's a place that is anonymous, so they can tell who they are if they want to, but they don't have to. And the idea is that the place can follow the steps that they need at the time and just go in the direction they feel able to take.
What are those steps? What are some of the steps that they...
Well, it depends. We can see for the youngest, for example, that it's very difficult to understand that what we're suffering is actually violence, because most of them say that he's very jealous, or yes, it's because he loves me so much. But then to actually put the word violence or control in the moments they're living, they usually need some help to name it. And so that's the first step. They need to hear the words. They need to understand that they're not supposed to live this. The second step would be for them to know who to go to see for, I don't know, for example, sometimes they need a place to stay. Sometimes they need legal help. Sometimes they need someone else to talk to, or a therapy session.
And this is where the government's big seminar comes in here, because you heard Annette Young at the outset talk about 5 million euros being a small amount. What kind of funds are needed, first of all?
Well, we are asking for €1 billion fund and opening, because that's what we calculated to be able to answer to all the women. With less than that, we will help some of them. But if we want to be able to help all of them, we will need €1 billion.
So, given that you do want so much money, are you happy, however, with what the government is proposing?
Well, we were waiting for this moment for a while, so we are actually happy that it's happening. And we hope that it's the moment that we will sacralize and engaged really in the next step. When Emmanuel Macron was elected, he announced that the ending the domestic violence would be the great cause, and we're waiting for that. And this is a new step. This is the first day. Many topics were not addressed yet. We have not talked about education, for example.
Or restraining orders.
Or restraining orders. We know it's going to be until November 25th. So we'll be here, we'll be there, trying to work our best with the government to address everything we need.
And in neighboring Spain, it wasn't just sensitivity training of the police. It was a wholesale reform of the courts that had to happen.
Yes, we also asked to have special special places in the courts, and also referent professionals to be, because the problem that we have today is that we lack efficacy, and we're not quick. The justice is not quick enough to help these women.
It's a
in
bureaucratic
danger.
overload, and it's a legal system here in France which clearly is staggering under the weight of all of this.
Annette, that folder that you showed us at the outset, it's got that hotline number that people can call toll-free if they're here in France, if they feel as though something's wrong and they want to speak to someone anonymously. We heard that the president went over to the hotline today to see how it functioned and all of this. What you do is a little bit similar, but you target more young people.
Yes, actually, we work together, and they do an amazing job, and the hotline is essential for victims today. We proposed a chat because the youngest feel more comfortable with this tool. They don't use the phone so much anymore, and they have difficulties to go directly to real people.
It's interesting what you're saying, though, but you're working with young people, because one would assume younger women are more empowered, that they would be able to stand up against a man who was threatening them. But clearly that's not the case, is it? That it is an issue that still affects all age groups.
It does affect all age groups, and young women are today more vulnerable to domestic violence. They suffer more, in France, more domestic violence than the older ones. And it's not because of 2019, it's because the youth has its specificities and its vulnerabilities. Usually they don't earn their money, they are dependent from their parents, for example. They're not used to be listened to, and so it's harder for them to get help. And that's why when they are in a toxic relationship or when they suffer violence, it's usually very, very difficult for them to live it.
Ynaée Benaben of the association avant, toute, which you can see on the web. Thank you for being with us. I want to thank as well Annette Young. Stay with us. There's more to come here on France 24.